I sent him to school. Technically, when he was asked by the other kids, what is that? He told them it was a cookie. And it came back in a little baggie that said, "You're welcome to enjoy this at home." And I was just like, Kevin was like, "Gemma, don't." And I was like, and then I was like, "It's not a cookie. It's a granola bar." Coming up on Need to Know, sell-by dates. What do you keep? What do you throw? The better for you bread boom. And organizing your pantry for the new year. All that and everything else you need to know. Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Need to Know. I'm Gemma Stafford, professional chef, cookbook author and the creator of Bigger Bolder Baking. And as always, my two lovely ladies are here with me. Ami Shukla, who is the head of culinary here at Bigger Bolder Baking, and Tiana Cohn, who is an amateur baker but a professional host.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
I thought we could start today's episode sharing some resolutions because I know this time of the year everyone is starting their workout regimes and they're trying to build their new habits. But I thought we could get a little specific and talk about any baking resolutions we have for 2025.
So my resolution for 2024 was to make one loaf of bread every week at home. And now that we're at the end of the year, I'd say I made 4 loaves of bread. You know, we're not big bread eaters. Yeah. If somebody was eating the bread, I'd make it all the time because I love to feed people. But nobody's eating it. And George kind of only likes the bread that he likes. And so that didn't last very long. For 2025, I have something that's a little bit more realistic, is to bake and cook more from cookbooks. I have a huge library of cookbooks with some fantastic recipes. So I would definitely want to stop scrolling online and actually just utilize the books that I have and, get inspiration and new recipes from there.
That's great. That's a good one.
Yeah, I love that.
Don't steal it.
I went first. Well, along the lines of baking, I've been thinking, actually, it's sort of popped up in my mind this whole year that I have all these recipes, all these things that I make for the kids, make for our friends, and I want to start writing them down so that they can have something when they get older and they have how do you make that pot of chili? How do you make those cookies? How do you make that cake? And then I have the recipes. And it's one of those things I want to start keeping a notebook with me in the kitchen so that when I'm making soup and I want to write down exactly the proportions of stuff I'm making so that I know how, so much of the stuff I do is improv and to really have records. So that's a goal of mine.
Yeah.
That's a good one because doing that will you'll have it forever. Mm-hmm. That's a really nice one.
Yeah.
And if you do it all year, come the holidays next year, that's a great gift.
Yeah, absolutely.
To your family. That'd be really great. My baking resolution is really to just bake more. I feel like I don't bake consistently. I go through phases. So overall, I want to just bake more. And how I'm going to achieve that is that I want to make all my friends their birthday cakes because I want to get better at cake decorating just in general, but mainly just crumb coating, I guess. I see all these videos on TikTok of people. I get so transfixed of them spinning it and they're, doing the thing. So that's my goal, is to get better at cakes. And I'm going to achieve it by making all my friends birthday cakes.
That's a really good one.
It's a great goal. And I often will, if I am itching to try a new decorating technique, will often volunteer to make the cake for something.
That's nice.
I'm going to try to document it so that by the end of the year, I'll have my progress.
Yeah.
So you can keep me honest and fact check me if I actually did it at the end of the year. This is our first hot from the oven for 2025, and I'm excited to talk about it. California has announced that they will be banning sell-by dates and instead replacing them with best by or use-by dates. And I thought this was really interesting because I'm often curious about what products that you buy, is that expiration date or sell-by date genuine, or is it just to get the products sold so that the grocery stores buy it from the distributor to then, keep revenue flowing. So I found this article on Taste of Home about items that can live in your pantry forever.
Oh.
I know. Most of them make sense, but I'm going to read them to you. So these things can live forever. The first one was cornstarch. Then you had dried beans, lentils, and legumes, liqueur, unopened maple syrup, popcorn kernels, powdered jello, raw honey, and salt. Unopened soy sauce can live forever, which I think is questionable. Sugar, vanilla extract, and vinegar.
Yeah.
And that's the end of the list.
I have a vinegar, apple cider vinegar that has kind of, I don't know a lot about vinegar, but has kind of formed a mother.
Yeah, but that's okay.
I'm a little bit worried about it.
It's not. It doesn't go bad. That's
I'm
actually.
afraid it's gonna like move and be alive.
I think it's edible. That mother, or don't eat it, or don't eat it. But it's an interesting list because there's a lot of really practical things on there, like dried beans and lentils. We always keep an emergency earthquake bag in our house with like power bars and a thing of water just in case something happens. We have things stashed away in our house because we live in earthquake country. But some of that stuff seems pretty gross. And I have no idea how old it is, but I almost want to replace that with like, a jar of lentils.
Lentils are a good one because that's a practical food.
Yeah, I
beans.
love lentils.
Yeah.
But this whole topic really got me thinking, like, how do you know, apart from like the expiration date on your baking products like flour, baking soda, all those things, is there a way to tell how long something actually is good, or what is the actual length of time you can keep something? And so I was wondering if any, like just off the top of your head, about some of the baking products.
I think the most common question we get asked is about raising agents. Baking powder, baking soda, how long are they good for? Because often we just left like baking season, where some people are not year-round bakers and they will only do it at the holidays and they're worried, is their stuff still good? I'd say like the raising agents, I'd probably say like are 2 years or so. Do you have an answer? Do you know the answer?
I do. I did some
What's
research.
raising agents?
So baking powder is 1 year.
Okay.
Baking soda is up to 3 years.
Okay. You can definitely fudge that baking powder. I've had baking powder in my cupboard for definitely 3 years because there was this one time I bought a 5-pound tub of baking soda, baking powder. Remember for the book?
Yeah.
That was stupid. But I did that and it was still totally fine. Flour, on the other hand, flour, you should really, and I know this is, you should, but it's not always that common to use it in like, 3 or 4 months or so, especially when you're talking about flour that has higher, like the oils and fats in it. So you're talking about whole wheat flour, rye flour, I think. These flours can go rancid and you can smell it very badly and you can't use them. And because the oil in the flour has turned. So those they have a shorter shelf life. And when you do have them at home, keep them in the fridge. They will last so much longer and they'll stay fresher if you keep them in the fridge or in the freezer, wherever you have them more room.
That's so interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, flour definitely goes bad. And if you don't have fridge space, try to get a smaller amount. And then you can put it in an airtight container and that's going to help a lot. Like, if you've got freezer or fridge space for flours, especially ones you don't use very often, that's always the best.
It is.
But if you don't, if you're limited on that, at least airtight containers, definitely don't keep it in the paper bag that you bought it in. Always transfer any of your dry ingredients, pantry ingredients, for 2 reasons. And I know this by experience. 1, they can go bad, but 2, you can get bugs in them.
Yeah, you can. And
that is horrifying.
You can get silverfish.
Yeah,
that happened to me.
Yeah,
with
you
flour.
can. Yeah.
What's the deal with flour over here? What did they say?
So this article said flour can last up to 2 years.
Yeah, I think that's really pushing it. Because of those bugs that can like be in dry pantry areas.
Yeah.
I will say that my the house like where I live now, we built our kitchen, we customized it, and he gave us a huge big pantry, and I have dog food containers that are on wheels they're totally sealed. And they are safe to put food in them, to like human food in them. And because we bake so much, I have like a 25-pound bag of flour and sugar in like these tubs. And they're way cheaper than food storage containers, like way cheaper. And they work really well, and they're on wheels. So I just wheel them around.
That's cool.
Isn't that fun?
Yeah. There was a few more that I thought were interesting that I'll share with you both is unopened confectioner sugars can last forever if it's unopened, and 2 years if it is opened. Corn syrup is forever.
Yeah, I bet it is.
And that is scary to me.
Yeah,
So,
that's why I don't use it very often.
yeah, don't bake with corn syrup. Then another one that I thought was interesting was molasses. If it's unopened, can be kept for 10 years.
You can have trouble with maple syrup because it can go moldy if you don't keep it in the fridge. Molasses, I've never had an issue with molasses. So I could see how even opened, it's going to last for a very long time.
Well, sugar's a natural preservative anyway, just in its, so it makes sense that molasses, which comes from sugar, would last a really long time. I don't even understand what would happen when it goes bad. Would it crystallize? It would.
I've seen golden syrup crystallize. I don't think I've ever seen molasses crystallize. And we would use that quite a lot, like in Irish baking. No. Yeah, that makes sense to me. What has a very short shelf life, so we know to be aware of it?
I would say that it's baking powder, according to this list, is 1 year. Peanut butter is 1 year. Dried fruits is 1 year.
No, I mean,
Well, fruits can get kind of crystallized too. Like I've had dried fruit stick around for a long time, and it gets hard. It's it's not so nice. I don't know that it would be bad to eat, for you. I don't think it gets moldy, but it can. You lose quality.
Chocolate also shouldn't hang around too long.
This says 2 years.
Chocolate?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
One thing that I'm not sure if it was on your list, but is used in baking so often is nuts.
Yeah.
And those can go bad. You can get bugs in them and they can go bad. And so I keep all my nuts in the freezer.
Yeah.
And there's so much fat in them. They stay soft. I mean, they're cold, but you can eat them straight out of the freezer, but they stay fresh. I mean, I don't know how long they stay fresh in the freezer, but I've never had them go bad.
Yeah, they can go rancid, just like the way I said about the whole wheat flour. And you can smell it. You can't eat them. It's not nice. So yeah, absolutely. The fridge or freezer for those is great.
That's great.
And also your almond flour and your nut flours, fridge or freezer.
That's
I always get a big bag of almond flour and keep it in the freezer.
Yeah.
Well, we will put all this info that we found and the links to the articles on the show notes so that you can reference it, make a little chart for yourself, keep it in your kitchen. The last one I will say that it does say can live forever is food dyes. And that to me is hand in hand with corn syrup. Maybe you shouldn't use it a lot if it can live forever. Moving on. Another really big trend we're seeing this year is the rise of better for you bread. And I'd love to explain just what that means for those listening if you've never heard of better for you bread. It basically is a bread that's made with health-focused ingredients or methods designed to offer more nutritional benefits than conventional bread. Breads often include higher levels of whole grains, fiber, protein, lower levels of sugar, salt, and artificial additives. They might also feature nutrient-dense additions like seeds, nuts, ancient grains, or ingredients that appeal to specific diets like keto or gluten-free. And so I wanted to get both of your thoughts on these types of breads, if you've ever had them, what your thoughts are on them, and if they compare or how they compare really to making bread at home.
So I have a few thoughts on these. They're totally doable to make at home. I will tell you that these breads often contain alternative flours, like not traditional flour. They can be quite dense, or they can rise and they'll fall. So it's a little bit harder to make these breads than it is at home than it is traditional bread. And then you also luckily can buy really good ones out there on the market. But I have a recipe that I'm going to share with you guys at the end of this episode for a keto bread that we have on the website. And the base of that, so it's kind of higher protein, and it's almond flour, eggs. It doesn't contain any grain. It's easy to make. It is a little bit stockier, but it tastes good and has a nice texture. So I'm going to share that with you guys, and you can let me know what you think. But they're good. You have some really good options out there.
Yeah, there's lots of different brands from Nature's Own Keto Loaf, Dave's Killer Bread, Ezekiel Bread, which I feel like that's the one I've heard of the most, Alvarado Street Bakery, Happy Campers, and they're all within the range of around like $5 to $9 for a loaf. So I do feel like if you need a bread option like that, they are very accessible.
I think those breads are great. Particularly, I'm a huge fan of Ezekiel bread. That's the sandwich bread that my kids get in their lunch every day, and they have their entire lives. They don't love it, but they eat it. You know, like every now and then they'll get a regular slice of packaged bread and they'll say, "Oh, Mom, it was so good. It was so soft. It was so," you know. But I look around me and I see a lot of adults who can no longer tolerate wheat. I said, like, so many, I feel like more adults than not are around in my circle are gluten-free. And I want myself and my kids to be able to enjoy whatever we want to eat, no matter what. So I think, why not eat certain breads the right way, especially when they become like what we're eating on a daily basis? So fermented wheats like sourdough or sprouted grains are so much easier for our body to digest. And if you look at the list of ingredients on like a package of Ezekiel bread, even compared to any of the other breads you've listed, like Alvarado Street or Dave's Killer Bread, which also contains a fair amount of sugar.
Yeah, Dave's breads have high sugar.
Yeah, I mean, they have a lot, they have multigrain, but they're a little, I'm always hesitant to buy that. But Ezekiel bread is so good. It's so hearty. You're having a meal. I always think like these things should be healthy, and I think there's protein in it. There's all sorts of vitamins in it. It's a great bread.
You just mentioned sourdough bread, and I'd love to talk about how sourdough bread kind of fits into this idea of better for you bread. What are some of the benefits that it offers?
Well, one of the things that wheat has in particular is something called phytic acid, which is an anti-nutrient. It will deplete your body of different minerals. But when you ferment wheat and in a sourdough or sprout it like in Ezekiel bread, you break down those phytic acids, and the bread in either case becomes a lot more digestible. All the nutrients within the grains are available to your body. You can process them better. So they're easier to eat. They're easier on your body and much better for you.
Usually people who find they have an intolerance of gluten, they can tolerate sourdough because of the fermentation. Not everybody, because I have a neighbor who is a gluten intolerant and she says it's just as bad for her as anything else. But generally, people do find it much easier to digest and much easier on the system.
That's so interesting because I had never really thought much of it, but I don't eat a lot of gluten and bread just in my health lifestyle. But I do, like, I'll eat something and I won't feel great. But I eat sourdough all the time and I feel fine. So I'm like, oh, I didn't even realize I'm someone who is in that category. There's a bagel shop by my house that makes sourdough bagels. And
oh, yum.
Yeah. And I used to get like just a plain bagel and it would always hurt my stomach. And then I started getting the sourdough bagel and now I have no problem.
Oh.
And it's so good.
That's so great. And sourdough bread is so good. It's not even effortful to eat that. It's just delicious.
Flavor, like, it's just like there, like it's just so lovely. And also a no knead dough. If you don't have a sourdough starter, maybe a no knead dough would also maybe have the same effects, where it's another fermented dough, but it's usually just shorter without a sourdough starter, so it's easier. And we have lots of those recipes on biggerbolderbaking.com.
All this talk about bread, and especially Ezekiel bread, is reminding me of the time when actor Adam Sandler went to a restaurant and he brought his own pack of Ezekiel English muffins and gave them to the restaurant to prepare with his meal. I don't know if you saw this. It was a few years ago, but I just think, one, it's so on brand for Adam Sandler to do this. But I don't know if I would ever have, obviously I'm not a celebrity, but I don't know if I'd ever have the tenacity to tell a restaurant, hey, make my meal with this. Like, I don't know.
Let me tell you from somebody on the other side of that in the kitchen, when that comes into the kitchen, it is, especially if you're just a regular restaurant or hotel or whatever, it is not well received.
I'm sure.
Well, I think it must be a liability for them. Like, I think if I owned a restaurant and someone brought in their own bread, no matter what it was, I'd make them sign a waiver saying, if I get sick, I'm not going to sue you guys. Maybe it was the bread I brought.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the first thing I think of. Like, I didn't know, is Adam Sandler a health nut? Is he really?
Well, I did. So I looked it up. I couldn't find a specific answer, but Ezekiel bread is famously
It's kosher.
kosher.
Yeah.
So I thought, oh, maybe that's why.
Uh-huh.
Like, I don't know what time of year he did this, so maybe it was during
holiday or something.
Yeah, or he was trying to be just healthy. Doesn't, because you don't know if you are somebody who has to either follow a strict diet or you read labels and you're very meticulous about what you put into your body. You don't know what your food's being cooked in when you go out. It's like, this is why I can't eat at like hibachi restaurants, because I've learned over time that the oil they put on the hibachi stovetop, I think it's like a sunflower oil or like a high fat oil, my body can't. And I'm not going to go to a hibachi place and be like, hi, I know there's 8 other people at this table. Can you please not put the oil on? So I just don't go.
Uh-huh.
But I think that's why, like, if you have health restrictions. But yeah, I would never do this.
I wouldn't do it either, because I know how it's received in the kitchen.
Yeah.
So I even honestly, substitutions, altering like the BLT, can I have no this, no that?
Yeah.
Not every kitchen. Some people are more open to it, but like I've worked in places where it's just like, no, oh my gosh, like such a stress for the chef.
Yeah.
And then some places, we ate somewhere in LA recently, and they said on the menu, absolutely no substitutions. The menu is as is. We are not changing it at all, which I just thought was a little bit much.
Yeah.
When every dish is like $28.
Well, I think where that gets tricky is if there's an allergy.
It does, yeah.
Yeah, like my boyfriend can't have tree nuts. And I'm always detail reading the menus just to make sure if there's like a weird vinaigrette or like, you never know. So that's the only thing where I would be like, oh, there should be flexibility for allergens.
Yeah.
If nothing on the menu accommodates that.
Right.
I will tell you, this is crazy. And I don't know when it came about, because I wasn't living in Ireland at the time. But in Ireland, by law, on our menus, you specify everything. If it's gluten-free, if it's nut-free, if it's egg-free. We have like so many little icons that pop up on menus to say, and it must be like the law around the country. It's really interesting. I went home a few years ago and I was like, what's the deal with this? And they just said they started doing it everywhere.
Yeah.
To make it really transparent. Did you see that when you were in Ireland?
Yeah, I just went to Ireland for the first time and I actually was like, this is so great. I know what's in everything.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's especially important if you've got celiac or you're allergic to nuts, and there's some pretty serious allergies out there. And I do think that's understandable. And most restaurants we go to, I think, especially in Los Angeles, people are very conscious of that. They'll ask right up front, are there any allergies at this table? But I think if it's just a personal taste sort of thing and you want to bring your own special bread or your own this, I don't feel like that's a particularly considerate thing to do. I think there's usually plenty to pick from a menu so that you can eat something that you're able to. Or there's also, in the case of Adam Sandler, there's a lot of restaurants in LA. You can find you can look on menus and you can find a place to eat that has the things
that will have kosher bread.
Yeah.
Or, whatever the reason.
Yeah.
I will say now, saying that I sound like I'm a no fuss kind of a person. Like when it comes to restaurants, like if we go out for dinner, like I don't need to order, because I already know the restaurant we're in. I know the caliber of it. Just order stuff for the table, because in LA, and this is very different to like what I grew up with in Ireland, is it's family style, which is just everything comes to the table and you share. I'm okay with not being the one ordering. The one thing that I am you're looking at me now like you know the answer.
I don't.
When it comes to my cocktails, I literally grab the barman and I'm like, okay, listen, this is how this is going to go down. I want a lemon drop martini. I want Belvedere vodka. I want it up. Are those freshly squeezed lemons, or did it come from like a pre-squeezed mix? Like you have to tell me. You tell me now, because your life depends on it. The poor guy. But I'm just like, and there's no ice, and then they bring it over to the table and I see it coming and I'm literally like, Kevin. And he's walking across the hall with the thing. And I'm just like, just do a little turn there and walk back around. Like no ice in my drinks. No ice in my drinks. And then they come back. They were like, oh, they pour it off and they bring it back, and I was like, there was ice in it. I saw it.
Gemma's gonna show up to the next restaurant with a cocktail shaker and her own drink.
Yes,
it's like, you know what? I just bring my own.
I really cherish going out for dinner and like getting a lovely cocktail.
Yeah.
And when I don't get it the way I want, it just irks me. And also they're $23 in LA.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
You have a few of those, it really adds up.
Yes, absolutely.
I didn't know what you were going to say, but I knew it was going to be about a beverage.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that is all I have this week from Hot from the Oven. Thank you both so much for sharing your insight. And similar on this theme of better for you, making things at home, keeping the ingredients simple, I want to talk today about things you can make at home versus buying them at the store. I feel like this time of the year too, people are really in their resolutions. They're trying to maybe eat healthier, eliminate, added artificial ingredients in food. So what are some just go-to things at home that you can make?
This time of year for homemade ingredients, homemade versions of your store-bought favorite cookie, your favorite cracker, whatever it is, your favorite ice cream, those are huge for us on biggerbolderbaking.com. January is when people decide, I'm going to learn how to make my own cheese. I'm going to start making my own butter. I'm going to start making my own sourdough. All of these things are so big for us. So on the website, we have a section that's basics, and that's where you can find all of these ingredients. And it was created because we have a universal audience. And I was showing recipes, 10 years ago, how to make something with self-raising flour. And then, in different parts of the world, even in America, people were saying to us, I can't get self-raising flour. So we showed how to make self-raising flour. Then we showed how to make cake flour. Then we showed how to make your own butter, cream cheese. These videos still and recipes to this day are some of our biggest videos. Homemade butter, homemade cream cheese, like how to make homemade cream cheese. If you Google that, like we come up straight away. Extracts, food dyes, everything. It's some of them like butter. People say, it's cream is really expensive. It's cheaper for me to buy butter. That's true. But you know what? Now you know a fun way how to make your own butter. Mm-hmm. And then also in some countries, cream is not that expensive, or maybe they literally live on a dairy. And we've heard this from people. It sounds kind of far-fetched. You can make your own butter that way. We have a few more coming up for this new year because the series is so popular that we're going to continue it this year.
Mm-hmm. That's great.
Yeah, there's a lot of nice. I mean, I know there's on the website already. There's making homemade pasta, making homemade gnocchi. My go-tos for homemade stuff, aside from breads, is homemade yogurt. So easy. Homemade jam.
Do you make your own homemade yogurt?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, sometimes I'll get lazy and buy tubs of it. We go through a lot. We make a lot of smoothies and stuff like that. But it's
buy your own yogurt.
It's so easy. It's almost effortless. It's like not even really like a thing.
I get a bit freaked out by it.
Really?
Yeah. Sometimes I do. Sometimes I get a bit freaked out about my own homemade stuff. You know what I mean? Like yogurt, I'd feel a bit funny about it.
My mom still to this day makes homemade yogurt. Really? So like I'm very used to that.
Yeah.
And it's just sort of an ongoing thing. You save a little bit of yogurt from your old thing. You put in some, you bring milk up to the boiling point to kill out any bacteria. You let it cool to lukewarm, and then you put like a tablespoon of yogurt into it and leave it in a warm place, and then you have yogurt in 6 hours.
Nice.
It's so effortless. It's so easy. And homemade jam, that you can make out of frozen fruit and some sugar. And pectin or no pectin.
You can make freezer jam, which is no pectin. We have a recipe on the website for that too. And I've also low sugar jams, which are always nice, but you do need some sugar in there. Mm-hmm. Those are good ones.
Yeah. It's nice. It's cozy, and I think in these long, cold winter days, and there's just not that much light, and it's nice to have the oven on. It's nice to have the stove on. It's nice to be home, and the holidays are so busy and there's so much going on. It's nice to sort of get quiet and do some baking.
Yeah.
Gemma, you have a lot of fun, what I'm going to call copycat versions of things on your website. And I want to talk to you about them. The first one is your copycat version of Cheez-Its. Looks really delicious.
Yes, those are good. And in the same vein, goldfish crackers.
I'm excited to try them. How, in your experience with making them, do they compare? Have you ever compared yours to Store-bought ones?
Ours tastes more cheesier. I will tell you, they don't stay as fresh as long because they're all natural ingredients and real cheese. And the other ones are like drier and it's cheese powder. So it's different. They don't stay as fresh as long. But what I do, I make them. I cut out the dough. I bake them off however many we want. I freeze the rest and then I bake them off fresh when I want them. They'll last for a few days, but I put them in George's lunchbox. But that's what I do to, I don't bake them all off at the one time.
Can you imagine the kids in George's class are like, George, why are your Cheez-Its so much better than mine? They don't know that they're homemade.
I sent him one day with a breakfast cookie, which is a granola bar. We have them on the site. But we market it to the audience as a breakfast cookie. Which is a really fun idea, and it did really well for us. But I sent him to school. Technically, when he was asked by the other kids, what is that? He told them it was a cookie, and it came back in a little baggie that said, "You're welcome to enjoy this at home." And I was just like, Kevin was like, "Gemma, don't." And I was like, and then I was like, "It's not a cookie. It's a granola bar."
They didn't let him eat his breakfast?
Because they told him it was a cookie. They said, "What is it?" And he was like, "It's a cookie." So they took it off him. And but there was other stuff he was able to eat. But I messaged them and I was like, "I'm sorry now, but you shouldn't have done that. It's a granola bar."
Yeah. Also, it's a 3-year-old, a 4-year-old.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't take his lunch
Well,
away.
one kid gets to bring a cookie, then they all want to bring cookies. It's chaos.
Oh, yeah.
Other thing you have on your website that's a Copycat version that I want to try is you have a recipe for McDonald's apple pie.
Yeah, that's a nice one.
And that was
So good. It's really good.
I have like
And they're the hand size. I don't know.
as that's the only reason I go to McDonald's is for an apple pie.
I will say my homemade graham crackers, we make them here quite a lot at house. At home I make them with George, and those are delicious. They're really good.
Well, if you are getting into baking, making things at home, keeping things fresh, check out the show notes. We have all the links to all these wonderful recipes that you can make. And of course, if you make them, tag us at Need to Know Pod on Instagram because we'd love to see it. And we're back with the Bold Baking Hotline where we answer questions directly from you. And today we have a couple of questions about keeping things fresh and bread. So we're staying on theme here. The first one up, we have, can expired ingredients still be used in certain recipes, or should I always replace them?
I'm guilty of using expired ingredients. I will tell you, you can fudge it. Like I've had, I buy a big thing of cinnamon, as you know, which definitely lasts 2 years. I mean, I've had it for 2 years, if not longer. Can you? Yes, I will tell you the stuff that you shouldn't keep using is raising agents that have gone past because they render ineffective. Yeast won't work, and there's some stuff that actually won't work. So that stuff you don't want to do. But I've definitely had a big bag of like a certain flour that I use rarely that I've used 9 months later, if not a year later.
I think it's always important to just do a smell and taste. Not flour. You should never taste raw flour. But if it doesn't smell like it's off, it doesn't smell rancid, I think it's fine to use. You can always, like if you've got nuts or something and you're not sure, you'll definitely know by smell, and certainly you would know by taste. A lot of expiration dates, as we know, because the law is changing, but still a lot of us will have things in our pantries with expiration dates that don't necessarily mean they've gone bad. But you can tell like something is dried or cakey or crystallized or doesn't smell right. Then it's not, you smell a spice and you smell nothing, it's probably not going to taste like anything either. So I would go with that, particularly with dry ingredients, any kind of dry pantry staples. If it's something wet, something that's, if it's been in your freezer for a while, you'll also be able to tell if it's freezer burnt or not.
Oh yeah, that's awful. Yeah. And it smells and tastes like the freezer.
Right.
The next question is, what are the best flours to use in low carb or high fiber breads?
Definitely whole wheat and less white flour. I've never had success making a bread with 100% whole wheat. But I do know that some bakers do that quite a lot.
Mm-hmm. And then also, there's a lot of alternative flours that aren't wheat. They don't have gluten, but you can add them into your bread. Coconut flour, very high in fiber, low in carbs. Bamboo flour, bamboo fiber that's been turned into flour is also a low carb, high fiber flour. Other ones that might not have as much flour but are low in carbs: almond flour, peanut flour, oat flour, ground flax seeds or ground chia seeds into flour. All of these things, none of these flours that I've mentioned have gluten in them. So if you're trying to bake a bread with them, you have to, there's a lot of recipes online for making gluten-free breads. You'd have to use some sort of binding agents and raising agents to be able to create bread out of that, which is research you can do. And if you're just trying to make a loaf of whole wheat or white flour healthier, you can replace a little bit of the flour with one of these flours that I mentioned, or just add them in addition.
That's so interesting. The last question is there a way to make classic breads healthier without losing flavor?
Yeah, we're fortunate that today, like, no matter your dietary restrictions or not, that there is a wide variety of recipes or store-bought breads you can buy. So you really today shouldn't have to compromise on flavor. I'm actually going to go get my loaf for you right now, which is a keto bread that is on our website. And that is almond flour, egg whites. It's high protein. It has no wheat flour, and it's really nice.
Well, I'm excited. I can't wait to try.
Okay.
Me too.
So have either of you tasted a keto bread before? Help yourself to a slice.
Ooh. Oh, I don't know. Oh, that's my piece. I don't know if I've ever had a specific keto bread.
I haven't. It's so tender.
This is almond flour, egg whites, some flaxseed, a little bit of raising agent, some apple cider vinegar, and boiling water. So it's very simple bread.
Mm-hmm.
It has flavor.
Mm-hmm.
It's not really a sandwich bread, but you can definitely see it like having it with like on a side of soup or something like that.
Yeah, even just like butter.
I bet this would toast really nicely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very.
That's nice though. It's flavorful, isn't it? It's very moist.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's because there was quite a lot of water in it, and then the almonds plump up. The flour kind of plumps up, and as well as the flaxseed. So it's exactly what you were talking about with those better for you breads. That's what this is. It's a nice alternative, isn't it?
Yeah, it's delicious.
It's really good. And I think you think about it as a texture more like quick bread than like bread.
Which it is a quick bread, but a keto quick bread. That recipe is on biggerbolderbacon.com.
Well, thank you both so much. I can't wait to see how the year progresses and how we all do with our resolutions. If you have baking resolutions, as I mentioned, let us know. Comment on this video. You can comment on our Instagram at Need to Know Pod. Please like and subscribe, rate and review us anywhere you listen to podcasts, and you can catch every episode of Need to Know on YouTube.
From HRN and the Bold Baking Network, you are watching the Need to Know Baking Entertainment podcast.